Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Bob. Welcome back to my channel here in my studio, my satellite dish. Hey, I got a little message for you today, and it's about when you get advice, right? You get from people. We all get it every day, right? What do we do with it, right? We are continually um, bombarded. All right, I'll say that. I'll say it with messages. And obviously, there's some of it has good intentions. Some of it's, you know, American way to get you to buy something. And most of the time, when you're hearing a message, it's not even designed for you because you're not in the target. I won't get into any types of products that I hear every day, but it's crazy. But we are continually assaulted with words of advice, and we become dull to it. We become desensitized to it until we have a need, right? That's a great thing they say about radio, is you can just keep playing that same 1-800 cars for kids message, and 3 years can go by, but then all of a sudden you get that car you got to get rid of tomorrow when you're calling that number, and it's so ingrained in your brain, right? Well, but we do get advice too from people, right? And some of it's what's the word? Not unsolicited, or critical advice, right? You get that too. You get the unsolicited advice. Then you just get people yelling at you sometimes. So we're continuing. By the way, I like the shirt. We're continually tested in a way as to our what do they call it in e-marketing? A funnel. We got this funnel, where we're getting information in. It's out of the term garbage in, garbage out, right? And you are what you eat. You are what you think. You are what you read. And then I wanted to bring this into the fulcrum of leadership, right? And everything counts, basically, that you've learned over the years, right? And so all these bits of information, are in your mind. It's amazing how much information. I mean, your brain never stops working, really, even when you're sleeping, but it's astounding what you can recall. I know some people who can speed read too, and that's a phenomenal gift. But my point today is that we're all leaders, all right? We're all leading our own lives, if you will, and we are all like what's the word? We're all this product, if you will, of what we've learned. And the problem is, we don't value everything equally. So we get all these sayings, and some we don't even listen to, some we store in the back of our mind, some we know it'll never even, affect us. And then you got all kinds of wisdoms, and they could be even conflicting philosophies, like look out for number one, right? Or love your neighbor as yourself. What are you supposed to do? Or it's a dog-eat-dog world, right? Don't give a sucker an even break. There are all these sayings out there, right? And then there's like, you get karma if you take care of somebody. There's good karma, and you get it back, right? And there's biblical references too. Love your neighbor as yourself. Walk another mile, with somebody. Walk that extra mile. So my point here today is that when you get into living your life, now you might have a leadership position, right? But at that point, you're tempted even more, okay? And even when you prosper, somebody once said that, the more prosperous you are, the more temptation there is, and so the more important it is to value certain um, um, morals, if you will, that'll keep you, if you're convinced, that 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 um that these are gold, right? And you can see the value in them, like, then you need to get to that point, because a lot of times you give lip service to these values, but you don't walk by them, you don't talk them up, and you don't lead by them, and you fall victim to all types of corruption in the business world, and especially when you get into a position where you have tremendous power, you have tremendous temptation, to maybe take some extra money, take some extra latitudes, abuse some relationships, this whole Me Too movement, right? This, all this financial corruption that's in America, everybody getting paid off. When I was in college, I read this book called On the Take. I think it was by a guy named Chambliss. It's funny I can remember that, because Chambliss was a name I was familiar with. But he went to Seattle. Chambliss was our first baseman for the New York Yankees for a long time. He went to Seattle, and he said, I'm going to pick any city, and I'm going to find, how corrupt it is. Well, he discovered corruption up and down the ranks of all any administration you can think of, in any institution you can think of. There was bagmans, there was payoffs. The mayor was in on it. I mean, everybody was dirty, and it was a nice, clean little town there in Seattle that you would, think of, right? But that was, unfortunately, just something that wasn't true. So my point is, we need to value God and what He says, and trust it when we lead our lives. And we need to specifically when we're going to lead our lives, when we're moving forward, we don't want to wink at sin. We don't want to wink at our own power, our own, our position is powerful. People rejoice when good people are in power, and you don't want to betray that trust. And in your life is, we have to be good stewards of our own lives, our own time and talent and treasure, as they say, right? And we need to be good leaders there too, and we need to trust God. Now, I'm not saying you have to tithe, okay? I'm anti-tithe. I'm anti-tithe. But you should give to God as your heart feels fit. If you don't like what you see going in the church right now, like me, I don't think you should be supporting something that you feel like God is not happy with, okay? You can find other ways to give, all right? Or you don't even have to give money. You can do whatever, right? It's up to you and the Lord. And even if you don't give, it's fine. The bottom line is to, get saved, number one, right? Get your eternal destiny resolved. Then number two, grow, You want to be growing, and how do you do that? First you have to hear the gospel message to get saved. Then you have to read the Bible if you want to grow. If you want to stay flat, don't want to grow, then don't read the Bible, all right? Just watch, ministry on TV or talk to somebody about the Lord. But you really should be in the Bible. The Bible has a glowing message and great nuggets that give you information that allows you to see reality. You're not living in reality if you're not reading the Bible. Your Bible says you're under the sway of the evil one, and you are deceived. So if you don't read the Bible, so everyone who's gone to school and has been in a curriculum that doesn't have the Bible, is not in reality. It cannot see reality. It's a dark place, and it's a waste of time. I'll just say, and it's a waste of money, big time money. All right, and in fact, I've mentioned this before, but our whole, we're graduating students who are legally insane. All right, I'll just say that, try to get your attention. How's that? Because our legal system is based on the Ten Commandments. If you go back to Magna Carta, you go back to the Justinian Code, you can tie it all back. I read this in D. James Kennedy's books. Probably What If the Bible Was Never Written? I'm pretty sure that was the one. So anyway, the point today is that, all right, let me just get back to, so, legally insane, how can we graduate, how can I make such a statement as, because the Ten Commandments is based, the Ten Commandments show you right from wrong based upon our own legal system. Now, we're not teaching the Ten Commandments, right? That, and the Ten Commandments, all it is to show you that there is right and wrong, and that you're a sinner, and that you need salvation. So there's a duality there. All right, nobody can get to heaven, and the problem is everyone thinks that you have to obey the Ten Commandments to get to heaven. That couldn't be anything further from the truth. Jesus wouldn't have come to the cross if that somebody could have fulfilled the Ten Commandments in the first place. So the Ten Commandments are another one of those things that just get twisted around and people misunderstand. Then they just toss it aside because they think it's unreal. So the educators think the Bible is unreal, and because they misunderstand the purpose of the Ten Commandments. Apostle Paul talks about the purpose of the Ten Commandments in the book of Romans, book of Galatians, Colossians, So that's what we're dealing with, is what's up with the Ten Commandments. It's almost like the most important thing to know about. And since we graduate these students who have no concept of why there was the Ten Commandments given, right? And no understanding of the problems now and the misunderstanding of it now, they're graduating into a system that, they have no concept of right and wrong. All other things being equal, right? Say if they're not getting it from anywhere else, they're not getting it on TV, or Hollywood, right is wrong and wrong is right. It's actually opposite. Your friends, they're only as good as what they're listening to, in the music culture, right is wrong and wrong is right. So we graduate these kids, and now they're being asked to conduct themselves, right, in a environment, all right, that's based on the Ten Commandments. Yep, they don't understand that they are fallen in the first place, and they are in jeopardy of committing a crime. Anybody is, and you're an adult now, so that's when you can really pay for it with a long-term penalty. Although if you're in Boston, I guess the district attorney doesn't prosecute minor crimes like shoplifting and dealing drugs and drugs possession and squatting. But that's another story. Well, she's the new DA, and that was a platform. That's how she got elected. I think her name's Ramirez. So anyway, what does that leave me with? I wanted to make the point that leaders have to value something. And why not value, you know, what's good and what's right, and knowing right from wrong, and leading accordingly, and and trying to make sure that, they are blameless, their reputation is blameless, so they can be good leaders and do good. Because a lot of times once you start doing bad, you start covering up more and making more bad to try to make your image look good. Then all you start caring about the image, and is your image good? Instead of just being a normal human being and standing on solid values, you have to overdo your overdo your image, and there's an unhealthy balance, and then you start becoming paranoid, right? Because you're worried about who knows the truth about you, right? I mean, what a tangled web we weave when we start to deceive, and so you start firing everybody left and right, and I'm not picking on any president but I'm just saying this is natural. This is what happens when you don't trust God in your profession as a leader. But it also occurs because we're all leaders in our own little way. If we don't let God in, the Bible said, Psalms 31, that he's our he leads us and guides us, with the word. Psalm 31 verse 3. We as sheep, we're kind of blind. We need he's the good teacher, right? In Luke, right? In chapters 25, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's we learn much from God, and to just completely not let him in from as an institution. Jesus said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I wish to gather you, but you were not willing, right? But he's talking to the institutions, to the country as itself. He's not talking to individual people in Matthew 23, right? 37, verse 37, I think. And that's another misunderstood verse, unfortunately. But that's the deal, is, we won't, as an institution, let the Lord in. And we need conduct. We need godly conduct as leaders, and let the chips fall where they may. And we have to take risks stepping out for God. I read a book, The Light and the Glory, by Peter Marshall and David Manuel, and talking about the early colonialists, and they were on the stretch for God, walking out there in faith and letting God, help them. God is our provider, but we have to have a relationship with God. We have that cultivated, and we need that so much. We need to nurture our godly environment, and but unfortunately, we're in a dark age, and evil is apparently winning, and evil's turned into being good. Whatever the Bible says is evil is now looked at as good. Sodom and Gomorrah would be okay nowadays, right? I mean, and God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So if he, like Billy Graham says, if he doesn't, if he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, then if he doesn't destroy America in the world, he owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology. So God's coming back in judgment this time. He came back as a suffering servant. He came back as a suffering servant who would take away the sins of the world, who died for the sins of the world, or for the people who believe. Let's put it that way. But this time he's coming back as a warrior. He ain't messing around. He's gonna just take out his enemies. We're gonna see it, and then he will rule and reign on earth for 1,000 years. So that's what's going on. I mean, this is all objectively proven too. It's not pie in the sky by and by. It's not subjective. This is stuff you really need to know about. If you don't know about this, you're not living in reality. You might think you're living in reality, but you are deceived. So you need to introduce yourself to the Lord, and through His Word, so you can get saved. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord Jesus will be saved. You are saved by grace through faith, and this is a gift of God. So gifts, His gifts are irrevocable, so that nobody would boast, right? Because that's what we like to do. We like to boast. So God knows that. He chose Israel. Why? Because they were the smallest nation, because He had to humble the world with the smallest. And Israel's been preserved all these years. But of course, Israel turned its back. And there's, and when Jesus came, the chief priests and the elders of the law, they had Him killed. It was their political will to have Pilate kill Jesus. And so the Jews did kill Jesus. So did the Romans. It was collaboration, but it was the political will of the Jews. Pilate wanted to let him go. So my point is that, since then it's the church age. Okay, so that's when people like me and you can get saved. If you're not a Jew, or even if you're a Jew, you can still get saved this way, just by believing in Jesus, who was the Messiah, who came, first coming, second coming. In the second coming is coming in two phases, where there's the rapture. Those He calls righteous are going to be removed before He pours out His wrath, because whenever He poured out His wrath, He removed His righteous. That's what He did with Sodom and Gomorrah and several other places in the Bible. Okay, so that's what you need to know. I hope you will do some digging, but get saved first. You'll get sealed with the ownership of the Holy Spirit coming into you. You become born again, spiritually born for the first time, and you'll be living in reality for the first time. And that Bible that everyone says you shouldn't read is the food you need. It's good food, spiritual food. You need, we're not just flesh and blood. We got a spiritual dimension. You're missing something if you don't have this dimension. So check it out and get back to me, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.